Hooked on you, baby, you're golden. Time moves, I never noticed. Just can't get enough. Got me wonderstruck.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the second episode of Make Me a Nerd. I am Mandy Kaplan. I am a mainstream Swiftie, and it is my mission, should I choose to accept it, which I have, to become exposed to all things nerd. How am I going to do that? That's a really good question. You're so smart. I have invited some fantastic friends and colleagues and true nerds to come into my life and onto my podcast and introduce me to things that they are passionate about and see if I can get passionate about these things as well. I have the honor of having known my guest for, 18 years or something. He is a fantastically talented actor, writer, creator, voiceover artist, which I'll have to ask him about a little bit. He is a singer and a performer in my cabaret miscast. And he has also started an organization with the word nerd right there in the title, Nerds Vote, which we're going to find out about. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm round of applause for my guest, JP Karliak. Hi,
Hello.
JP.
How are you?
Better now.
Yeah.
I don't get to see your face enough.
I know. Truly.
Yeah. So, just a little more background before I just heap all my praise and love and affection at you. Do you remember when we met?
Yes, it would have been the callback for wait, hold on. I know the name of the short. I know the shorts series of
Web
shorts.
series, yeah.
Yes. It's not 7 Deadly Sins. It's like 7
It's Premarital 6.
Premarital 6. I know there was a number in it. There it is. Yes.
And now I produced the web series, and I remember my dining room table covered in headshots. And I kept looking back with our director, Tom W. Metz III, from last week's episode. And we just kept going, but we have to put him in this. Look at that face. The handsomest face in the world. Like we had to, and we did, and we bonded. And then I have not stopped stalking you ever since.
Bless you.
I didn't sneeze. Yeah. So let's start if we can.
Yeah.
I mean, I tried to name all the things you do. I'm sure I missed some of them, but tell America and parts of Canada a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. So, voiceover artist, queer activist, snappy dresser. That's kind of the headline. Yeah, I've been doing voiceover for 20 years. My biggest credits of note are I play Morph in X-Men 97. I'm the Boss Baby on Netflix's Boss Baby series. And Green Goblin on Spidey and His Amazing Friends. So a lot of playing legacy characters is sort of what I do.
And 2 out of those 3 are very nerdy, yes? To be X-Men and Spider-Man?
Yeah.
I mean, I know they're mainstream now, but superheroes I think of as this world I'm not familiar with.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I think Boss Baby is its own very specific brand of nerdy.
Yes. Now, wait, that's not Alec Baldwin? She asked on behalf of all of America.
It is
so
not.
He did the movie, and then Netflix said, we need someone better for the series.
More affordable. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the majority of my career has been playing legacy characters. So, I mean, everybody from Willy Wonka to Wile E. Coyote to the Black
Cher.
Cat. So, yeah.
To Cher on stage in Miscast.
I have played Cher, and on many karaoke nights while imbibing a few. Yes, I have portrayed Cher.
It got Casey, he must have been about 8. My son Casey, for those who are new, when he was about 8, and JP did a medley from Cher's musical and Miscast, and had Casey afterwards going, oh, like he just wouldn't stop.
Yep.
So thank you for that.
Anytime.
So you say queer activist.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically, you have an organization to galvanize people to vote, correct?
Yes. So I two organizations. One is Nerds Vote, which I co-founded with voiceover pal Courtney Taylor, and it is all about getting out the vote to gamers, cosplayers, con goers, comic book readers, and pop culture fans of all kinds, aka nerds.
Yeah,
Um, yeah.
exactly the people I'm trying to infiltrate.
Yes. As a matter of fact, so we just did a big activation for Free Comic Book Day. We're going to be doing another one for Tabletop RPG Day. I'm sure all foreign words do. And,
I should have mentioned we do the podcast in English,
oh,
JP.
right.
So
Sorry.
please.
Yeah. Subtitle. Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, we've been doing that, gearing up for the big election, though we do stress that every election is important. Yeah. And then my other organization is QueerVox, which is a nonprofit academy and community for LGBTQIA plus voice actors. And it's all about training, highlighting, uplifting, and supporting queer voice actors, and also training the industry to know better what to do with us. That's what I do.
Thank you for all you do on behalf of so many people. And now I would like to know about your relationship with all things nerd. Were you always into these things? Did these things become a passion for you in your teen years, your later years?
The first show that I was addicted to as a little kid was He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. So I feel like that sort of already starts me, you had one of several paths as a child in the early 80s, and that was you could be obsessed with Rainbow Bright or He-Man or G.I. Joe, slightly later Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And I think they were all a certain brand of nerd, but for me it was not G.I. Joe, it was He-Man. So all things sort of fantasy, sci-fi, especially fantasy, sci-fi fusion. Oh, I was into all the time.
Yeah. I equate He-Man. I used to watch it when I would have my Pop-Tart for breakfast before school.
Sure.
My mom was a brilliant cook. And but then I think Gem and the Misfits were also, like, Gem and the Holograms were also in that block. And I might be misremembering, but
truly outrageous.
Right? There was a lot of chiseled chins and cheekbones, and that's how I started my day back in the 80s.
And that's where I learned my makeup skills.
Yeah. Well, I was into He-Man too. And then at some point I keep writing in my notes as I'm watching some of these things, like, when did my imagination die? When did I become this person who's like, dragons, that's not real. And then I don't invest anymore. I don't like that about myself because I can look back and remember very clearly loving He-Man and things like that.
Yeah, for sure.
So I'm a recovered nerd trying to fall back off the wagon or something. I don't know how that works, but
Sure. You were you went through nerd conversion therapy and now you want to regain your true identity.
That's a much better way of phrasing it. Thank you.
Sure.
So you are currently a gamer and an animation enthusiast.
I know more about games because I do voiceover for video games. So I definitely have fallen down the rabbit hole of being on YouTube, looking at cinematics and everything to be like, what is this game about? Because I only own a Nintendo Switch. I have never had any other system that is not Nintendo. That's not a plug for Nintendo. It's what's familiar to me. So anything that's Xbox or PlayStation is totally over my head and also way outside my skill set. Like, there's a lot of extra buttons there. And my Nintendo Switch, I feel, is very familiar. I can handle it. And it's also, I can get really sucked into and addicted to a video game. That Mandy and I were talking about not that long ago about my addiction to Breath in the Wild and how I spent like maybe close to 250 hours playing that thing.
I thought is that Zelda? I thought that's what you said.
Yeah, Zelda Breath of the Wild.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah, they have subtitles like, James Bond.
Yeah. And when we were talking video games, you said, what kind of video game system do you have?
Oh.
And I went into my playroom and I looked and I still couldn't tell you, even though I was staring at them. I was like, I have this big box. And you said something like, you mean an Xbox? And I said, I don't know.
Yeah.
So that is how foreign those are to me. And we do have a Nintendo Switch. And I remember trying to play Mario's Haunted Mansion with Casey when he was little. And I just kept banging my character into a wall. Like I couldn't master how to move or do anything. And that was my 11 minutes of video game glory.
You remind me of when I first got a Nintendo in 1980, whatever. And we plugged it in and we sat down to play and I tried it. And then I handed the controller to my mother and was like, do you want to try? And she turns on Super Mario Brothers and she runs right into the first Goomba that was there. And she's like, I'm done. And never again has she touched a video game system.
Right. Well, I don't want to tell my tale of woe, but we didn't have one growing up.
Oh, okay.
We only read Shakespeare in my house.
Sure, yeah.
So I would go to friends' houses and they had Atari and Intellivision. That's a deep cut.
Oh,
do you remember
yeah.
Intellivision?
Yeah.
I'm a hair older than you are. So, and I would play at my friends' houses, but I never had a gaming system at home. So I never had the chance to get good or get into it. And then a story that I'm sure I'll share on my podcast repeatedly is that finally my parents said, we can get a gaming system on your Commodore 64.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's a computer, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And but the games we had were the cheap knockoff games. And all the kids were playing Q*bert and I was playing Q*bopper. That's right. So it might be that it's triggering and
you weren't
too
playing
painful.
Centipede, you were playing Millipede, or
right. Yeah, center field. I don't know.
Yeah.
It might be too painful to play
Super
video games.
Costanzo Brothers, like
it was. Yeah, it was tragic. I had a tragic childhood. We'll do that in the next episode.
Yes, and several. It'll be a multi-parter.
Exactly. So the thing that you chose for me today is called
Castlevania.
Pete, if there's a trailer, please play it now.
There is a darkness upon the land. A savior is needed.
Who are you?
The man who'll kill Dracula.
Why did you choose Castlevania?
Well, when we started this discussion, there was a lot of different possibilities. But I will say that a lot of the things that came to mind, like the Marvel Cinematic Universe, would have been like, okay, Mandy, go and watch 20 movies and then let's reconvene. And it all just felt like a daunting chunk of time. But then I remembered, that you are a horror fan. I do know that about you. And
I have a relationship with horror. I wouldn't call myself a horror fan.
It's something you've watched and you're familiar with.
Yes.
And also that Castlevania, the series, the first season is only 4 episodes. So I was like, okay, this is really manageable.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's more to go from there. Like, if, we ever do a part 2 on it. But at least this is a very manageable toe dip. And one that I am very off book on and very much a fan of.
Fantastic.
Castlevania is known. Castlevania, the series, the animated series from Netflix, is based off of a web series, not a web series, a video game series from the 80s that, has actually been, it's an IP that has been across multiple systems over many years. But it was known for being kind of spooky and having all sorts of what we know today is like the universal monsters, like Dracula, Frankenstein, all of those. And also having as the youth may say, bangin' soundtrack. With
the music is really good, yeah.
Incredible music. As a matter of fact, my ringtone for the past 10 years has been the Castlevania main theme. So this felt like a nice place to start.
Okay, for those who are unfamiliar with Castlevania, as I had never even heard the word. So I was really going in completely blind. In my crack research, looked it up to get a little blurb for people. Even if you've heard the trailer, this is the story. When his human wife is burned at the stake after being falsely accused of witchcraft, been there, the vampire Vlad Dracula Tepes, am I pronouncing that right?
Mm-hmm.
Tepish,
Mm-hmm.
declares all the people of Wallachia will pay with their lives. He summons an army of demons that overruns the country, slaughtering the population and leaving the survivors to live lives of fear and distrust. To combat this, Trevor Belmont, the last living member of a once legendary family of monster hunters, takes up arms against Dracula's forces, aided by the magician Sifa Belnades and Dracula's son, Alucard.
Mm-hmm.
How did I do?
That's awesome. Which, like, Easter egg, Alucard is it's a term that's existed in literature and everything way outside of this video game, and it's Dracula backwards. Oh my goodness.
Oh, God. This is why I don't belong in this world, maybe. I am staring at the word and just didn't come up with that at all.
I remember it first came up in, this is also a deep cut. There's a movie which does not hold up the test of time. I don't recommend it, but there's a movie from the 80s called The Monster Squad, which was basically like, if you had a log line, it would be The Goonies meets the Universal Monsters. And it is very homophobic to watch again, like the things that these little boys call each other are horrible, horrible things. However, they are basically investigating this strange man that moved into this mansion. Spoiler, it's Dracula. And but the name that he put on the lease, I guess, that's on his mailing address is Mr. Alucard. So yeah,
I love it.
Mm-hmm.
When you said 80s Dracula, did you see Fright Night? I loved that movie with Chris Sarandon.
Yes.
I don't think he was Dracula. I mean, he might have been Dracula, but he was a vampire.
I think he's definitely a vampire. Yeah. Uh-huh.
It was racy and funny and scary. I loved that movie.
I remember, do you remember when Chris Sarandon, between that and Princess Bride, he was like one of the it people?
Yeah. Yep. And I always got him confused with Michael Nouri from Flashdance.
Oh, sure.
That's just a little, there's pairs of actors that you just consistently get confused.
Absolutely.
I know Paxton and Pullman really throw people. I'm not one of those people. I've got that straight.
Dylan McDermott and Dermot Mulroney.
There you go.
Yeah.
Fine example.
Yeah.
So, yes, Castlevania. I actually like Dracula. I like the world of, it's sexy, it's dark. I read Anne Rice. I'm down with some Dracula lore.
Were you a fan of the Gary Oldman Winona Ryder back in the day? Oh yeah, that thing was messed up, but it was so much fun.
Yeah. No, I think I have quite an appreciation for this.
Mm-hmm.
But then you say I love horror. I actually write horror, which is so strange, but I'm also anti-violence, so it's this weird blending of characteristics. Yeah, that I have. So I click in Castlevania, Netflix. I'm about to press play and it says gory, violent, horror, anime. And those are 4 things I avoid at all costs. So I
thought this was so well chosen.
Damn you, JP. I know. I it's tricky because I like more of the goofy horror rather than the really terrifying, violent.
Sure.
But anywho, the theme song is not the first thing we see. The first thing we see are the bats. The whole screen is blackened with bats, and then Lisa is on her mission to go to the church, right?
Yep.
To find Dracula.
Oh, his castle, yes. Uh-huh.
His castle.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was a church.
I mean, it's very Gothic architecture, that's for sure.
Okay. You feel free to correct me because, oh my God, was I confused. And I was taking notes like, I don't think I understand what's happening. But their interaction was very Katharine Hepburn, Spencer Tracy.
Right.
It was light and flirty and delightful. I didn't expect that at all. I expected a battle right off the bat, like an actual battle to the death, not some verbal flirting and sparring. And that tone, I really responded to. I really liked that.
Mm-hmm.
it didn't maintain that tone for very long.
No,
It takes a hard right
things
and
go
gets
south.
right. I really enjoyed that. Then we get to the opening credits, which are true detective-esque, but the music is fantastic. The imagery is fantastic. It is so elevated. It's not. Casey used to watch anime when he was little, and these are different things. This is so artistic.
Yeah, I mean, anime is such a massive genre that there's so many subgenres within it. I mean, because this is anime includes this and also Pokemon, so
Right.
very different series, but with some similar artistic styling, I guess you could say.
Yeah, but I don't know why I associated the theme song, which, Pete, could you play just a snippet of this theme song? It's so glorious. Or I guess I could have called you, JP, and your phone would have provided us the
Well, I will
audio.
say the theme song, they don't start incorporating music from the video game until season 2 because
Okay.
the fans lost their minds. Like they were like, the music's good, but we want to hear the songs from the video game. And so then they started popping them in. But yeah, so the theme on my phone is from the 80s game, not the series.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay. But this theme, I was thinking House of Cards, but it's not House of Cards. But I couldn't come up with the sound alike of this music. Is it familiar to you at all from a different?
I mean, House of Cards
series?
doesn't sound that dissimilar. I
Yeah.
feel like it does. It has that like pulsing strings, sort of, ominous. Doesn't say, as somebody who's only seen half of an episode of Succession, but doesn't Succession have like a
I
thing like
can't
that?
access it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I have no idea. But yeah,
You're too potty mouthed on Succession for me.
my virgin ears.
Yeah. But you said something interesting I want to ask you about. You said the fans went nuts. So the producers went ahead and granted the wishes of the fans.
I know. What are they doing?
Well, that's something that is specific to this nerd world,
Oh, for sure.
right?
mean,
If
the
I write
biggest-
into the housewives, they're not going to take my advice and fire a housewife or make changes to their BS programming.
And a lot of that has to do with that. If Housewives was based off of, a previously existing IP that is very beloved, then they might hold it a little bit differently. Of course, it's a reality show, so that's not possible. But yeah, I mean, the biggest example, another video game franchise turned into something, is the Sonic the Hedgehog movie.
Mm-hmm.
There was an original design of what Sonic looked like, and the fans lost their minds because he looked just weird and fake. And so they redid the whole CGI of the movie to have a new design for Sonic, which I don't know how I feel about all that, because I do think it does stifle artistic license to a certain degree. And, I do, while doing it a faithful homage to a property is nice, I also don't want anytime everybody picks up an old IP that they have to be so beholden to what came before. However, that Sonic was hideous, and it was good that they redid it.
I didn't see the original, but I did see that movie. Footnote, IP means intellectual property for those of you who aren't familiar with the term.
Oh, sorry.
Back to the podcast. So, but that must make fans feel heard and respected, and like they're almost like you're collaborators with the filmmakers rather than they're just feeding you something and you have no voice. I mean, that's different.
Yeah,
I
for
don't-
sure. Because I
In
think
other
there's-
genres, that doesn't happen.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it is, in best case scenario, the fan base and the filmmakers, like that the filmmakers are fans as well. And so there's a shared common desire to see something that really pays homage to the source material.
Right.
I mean, timely, I think a whole bunch of us sat in front of the screens yesterday and watched the Wicked trailer. And
Guilty as charged.
And I mean, there is like everybody watches it, and there's certain things that they're looking for and expecting, because we all love that musical to death. And for me, it's the book. Like, I adored the book first. And so I'm so excited for, some expansion that may happen now that this is going to be a two project,
yeah.
that we might get more of the book details that I loved so much. But yeah, I mean, really just investing in all of those little details to see if they're there. It's the same way with all of this other nerddom.
I love that. And you think about Comic-Con as being something created for the fans. Yes, it benefits the studios and they profit from it. I understand that. But it really includes the fans. I've been writing a campaign for years to have a sequel to Sophie's Choice where both kids live. That's just never going to happen. No one's listening.
Bless you.
But right? But never seen Sophie's Choice. But I think that that's part of this nerd world that I am trying to crack is how enthusiastic the fans are. The hours and hours spent on Reddit forums trying to figure out an Easter egg or a clue about the next installment of a movie, or, I delight in that. I can do that about other things. So I've actually never been on a Reddit forum, but I know they exist. And it's really, that's what I love about this. It's such a strong community.
Yeah, for sure.
Where it seems like the people creating this content are of the people they're creating it for.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's funny that you bring up Reddit forums. I was just talking to my cousin-in-law last week, who is also a Swiftie. But her friends are like extra Swiftie in the sense that they're the ones that are on TikTok finding out what her set list is and discussing about how she changed her set list from this place to this place. And, there's such that rich, connection that they want to parse out every little detail. So
right.
I think that is what not just nerddom, but fandom in general is today. It is so molecular and detail oriented that
right.
whenever there is an Easter egg or just some little detail that you might remember, not so much in this first season, but in the second season of Castlevania, there's so many little nods to the games that have come before. And, people are all on I don't go on Reddit either, except if I need computer assistance. But but so many people just on YouTube or, are, on social media just commenting about like, oh my God, did you see that?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's an added layer. You're not just watching a story. You're looking for certain clues and, I just think it's
it
exciting.
Rewards you for being the dedicated fan, because obviously,
right.
I mean, for people that come new to it, they can still enjoy it. Like there's a plot that is followable, but as far as, the reward for being the invested fan who has followed this IP over, potentially many years, this is the little award of you done good. Thanks for sticking with us.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you said a plot you can follow. I'm not sure that's accurate in my case.
Sorry.
That's quite all right. I mean, I got in the first episode, you done killed my woman. You put her up on a stake and burned her.
Yep.
I'm going to make you all pay for eternity for that.
Sure.
I'm a little jealous. Jer won't even do the laundry for me, but that's, neither here nor there. But I mean, this was such a love and such a heartbreak for him. He decides to wreak havoc on anyone involved. I mean, anyone involved or anyone even in the town. Some of these people weren't
anyone
there.
In the region. Like he's basically just nuking an entire region of Poland. Like, sure.
So I think I really followed that first episode. And I found a lot to like. I like that they use modern language. Right? They just throw in modern day terms and profanity and I liked that. And then the second episode lost me because it was about Trevor Belmont and his family's legacy of hunting and killing monsters, right?
Yep.
And but I'm glad you said it's not just about the plot. If you are a fan, you are watching for this thing in total, not just wait, I missed that point. What's that guy saying? Right?
Yeah, and I don't disagree with you in the sense that it's interesting that they spend that whole first episode, you never meet the protagonist of the series until episode 2. It's really the whole episode setting up the villain, but it does so in a way where you start to question, like, well, wait a minute, who is the villain here and who is the protagonist? So yeah, there isn't a little bit of confusion that comes from who am I rooting for, I guess.
Right. Look, I have equal admiration for Dr. Evil and Austin Powers.
Of course.
And the movie spends almost equal time on both of them. So I enjoy that, treating the villain like a main character and not just he's off in a tower somewhere plotting, but we get to see why he is who he is.
Yeah, giving them a complex motivation that's not just, I am evil and therefore I shall do evil.
Right. And so Trevor Belmont, is that Armitage? Richard Armitage is the voice?
Yep.
So I thought maybe I had like a Prince Eric level crush on him at first. He's a good looking man. That voice, I was all on board. And then he spit on a pile of bodies, JP. What? Can you explain that moment to me? He discovers a mass grave and just hocks a loogie onto it.
I think Trevor represents, because his family used to be monster hunters until they were hunted down and murdered themselves because, oh, well, you were killing the monsters, but the monsters aren't really around. It's sort of like putting two and two together, like with Superman, like, wait a minute, Clark Kent is never here, but you are here. So does that mean that,
Yeah.
I think the countryside and the mob mentality started to associate, well, you're here when the monsters are here, so that must mean that you bring the monsters. Wrong. But his entire family is slaughtered. But even before that, he is basically a war veteran of having seen so much violence and death, in slaughtering demons when they are slaughtering, the countryside and all these other people. So I think there's a desensitization of death, like, like soldiers who have seen a lot of combat that come back and it's just, it doesn't compute anymore in the same way that it does for us. So in no way justifying spitting on bodies, but I do think that that's where that comes from. That's, it's just sort of like, oh, more mass death.
Another mass grave.
Yeah.
Huh. Yeah, that threw me in terms of its tone being like, I thought we were supposed to be rooting for Trevor Belmont. And then I was so turned off.
And also, I will say, I think some of it comes from that these ordinary citizens are the same ones that his family was trying to protect and then hunted them down and murdered them. So I think it's sort of like he has derision for society as a whole.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I like the world that they're creating. I liked when they were in the bar. I expected Gaston to walk in and a musical number, which did not happen.
Apologies for that. Mm-hmm.
Think as a JP Karliak recommendation, I would think, but no. But it's one of my questions to you as a person who watches a lot of animation, and I'm assuming a lot of live action fantasy and stuff as well.
Thanks. Mm-hmm.
As CGI and special effects have improved, does that impact animation? Because you can do things in animation that you used to not be able to do in live action.
Right.
But now the advancements are so much so, is there anything still that you can achieve through animation and you just could never capture in live action? Does that make sense?
I mean, I think if you watch a Marvel movie or like a big effects driven movie, no matter how good the effects are, your eye is always trained to be looking for reality. And so you're still seeing the seams. You're still seeing, like if you're watching Sonic the Hedgehog, for instance, well, I mean, maybe that's a bad example, but you definitely can tell the difference between James Marsden and Sonic. Like we know that he is real and you're not. And even in a Marvel movie where we have somebody like Thanos, who is so well animated and so detailed, and you see all the pores on his skin and it's all so perfect, you still know that's fake. That's not real. Huh. And I think what's great about animation is none of it's real, so all of it is. So you're buying into this whole reality hook, line, and sinker. once you're into the style of it, there isn't so much of a necessity to make things extra realistic because you know what you're watching. That you're not seeing every pore or
Right.
ultra realism in their face or anything like that. So they actually can get away with bigger swings without having to get into all of those minute details. So in the way that like visual effects budgets on these big movies go massively out of control because they're trying to make it all look real.
Right.
Yeah, this can just do whatever it wants.
Well, I love that. And I think that's why The Simpsons and Family Guy are so successful and so hilarious because there's no limitation.
Right.
Oh, we'll just have a flashback to when Homer was a horse.
Right.
And boom.
And Kool-Aid Man versus Blue Wall. And sure,
Yeah.
why not? Yeah.
And anything can happen. And I love that. The idea of no limitations in animation. So this was 2017, 18 that this was made.
Yeah, I think that's about right.
But it really harkened back, some of it, to He-Man style animation. Like for me, the sets were very detailed and beautiful and lush and modern, but the characters are drawn in a very old school way.
So the series is animated by Powerhouse Animation, which is out of Texas.
Okay.
Even though they are an American company, their stylization is very anime based.
Mm-hmm.
So it feels like something like an anime that you would have watched back in like the 80s or 90s. They have a very particular style. Like they've also done the reboot of He-Man that's on Netflix, to draw it back to that. I'm trying to think. I think they did Blood of Zeus, which is also on Netflix. And though they all have their own their own specific styling, there are some through lines of having that sort of anime pedigree that informs it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a beautiful show. Alas, I wasn't feeling like, oh, I want to go into season 2.
Sure.
But it really opened my eyes to things I've just never even considered.
Uh-huh.
And I owe you an apology, but also perhaps a bonus that I did not end up playing the video game. And that was, my life got a little out of control. So I didn't have time. Casey kept saying, when are we downloading Castlevania? Which day do you want to do it? And I was unable to find a chunk of time. I didn't want to do it for 20 minutes. I wanted to actually give it a shot.
Yeah.
So I apologize. And I am saying to you now in front of God and everyone, will you come back and assign me a different game on the Switch so I can attempt video games?
Sure.
And you will be my Sherpa.
I love that I'm the one for that. Okay. Yeah.
Well, you love the Switch and I have a Switch.
No, yes. Yeah. As your resident Nintendo Switch person, absolutely.
Well, thank you very much.
Uh-huh.
Is there anything I am missing about Castlevania that you want to get off your chest, why you love it, why it speaks to you?
I think a few different reasons. I think I love a monster movie.
Mm-hmm.
I do love the music from the video game, and I think this series captures it. There's a lot of adult animation that's sort of in that genre that I really glom onto, where I think it has some really relatable and adult themes, but it's also doing it in a fantastical, often gory way. Like I'm a big fan of Invincible and Blood of Zeus and Blue-Eyed Samurai and a lot of those shows that are kind of check those boxes. So yeah, I will say season 2 is the strongest season of the 4. Season
Darn
2 is
it.
the best. I know, but that's
Well,
a
now
longer
maybe
one. That's a longer season, so And also, if gore is not your thing, it does not get less gory at all. So
Well, this gore I can handle because it's so animated. And the gore I can't handle, or the violence I can't handle. It's not the gore, it's the violence. Realistic violence really scares me. I could never watch The Sopranos, which I know makes me sound
sure.
crazy,
No,
but
not
that
at all.
could really happen. I could bump my cart into James Gandolfini at the store and he could flip out and beat me, which is like one of the episodes I saw. He jumps out of his car and beats a man for rear-ending him. And I have no interest. I can't handle that.
I really identify with that because by and large, horror movies that like Friday the 13th or Freddy or something like
Mhm.
that, I find more funny than anything else because they're not real. But I'm
Right.
truly terrified by movies like Scream because it's like, oh yeah, one of my classmates could have gone nuts and just put on a mask and started murdering all systematically.
Yeah.
Like, sure, why
But
not?
no spoilers, JP.
Drew Barrymore dies. Yeah.
Okay, my friend, I have this much business. I'm doing the universal sign for half an inch, and then I have a proposition for you at the end.
Sure.
Okay, so here's my business. Make Me a Nerd is a production of True Story FM, engineering by Pete Wright, and my theme music, Wonderstruck, is by Jane and the Boy. Please reach out to me on Instagram at Mandy_Kaplan_Clavens, both with K's. But the best thing you can do for this show and for me and my ego is leave an Apple review. Please hit 5 stars and write a review. You can ask questions. You can tell me what you would like me to watch, and maybe you can come on the show next and help this world make me a nerd. And I am starting this venture and need subscribers. $5 a month gets you extra material, bonuses, more access to me, a private Discord channel, all the fun stuff. So I really appreciate if you can join and subscribe and help me become a nerd in that way. That's my business. Here's my question, which might lead to an exciting venture for us. Has anyone done the Mel Brooksian version of anime, the Spaceballs treatment?
I don't think so.
Right? As I was watching, my mind immediately goes to parody or, lovingly sending up something. And that could be such a fun thing to explore. The 2-hour feature anime.
Anime! Exclamation point. The musical. Like, yeah. Uh-huh.
Right. I'll call it Pokemon. It just came to me. I'm sorry.
Pokemon.
But
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Pokemon. But yeah, I feel like the world knows it and loves it, and therefore we should make fun of it in a loving, in the same way Mel Brooks did Spaceballs or any of his movies.
Yeah. I don't know if anybody's done it like the full screwball Mel Brooks version. I'm sure there's been anime parody, but I don't know if it's necessarily been done as a film.
Uh-huh.
No.
What are you doing for the next 6 months, JP?
Oh my God. The answer to that is long.
Well, where can people find you, my dear friend, if you'd like people to reach out to you?
Please don't. I will have a restraining order. No, you can find me on Instagram at JP Karliak or at my website, jpkarliak.com. And if you want to learn more about Nerds Vote, visit us at nerdsvote.com. Or if you want to learn more about QueerVox, we're at queervox.org.
And that is Queer Vox with a V as in victory, not Queer Box with a B as in...
Yes, we do get that a lot.
Right. So I'm just trying to help the people out. Thank you so much for attempting to geek up my life. I really, really appreciate it. I adore you so much, and I admire so much what you put out in the world every day in all aspects of your professional career, your personal missions. Thank you.
Thank you. I adore you too.
All right. Until next week, I know there's some Star Wars in my future. Thank you all for listening. See you next week.